Sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin in the most ordinary places, like a neighborhood paint store.
As I learned more about paint and color, and I had fallen in love with the paint industry really right off the bat.
For most of us, a paint store is a quick stop on the weekend to-do list, but for Tony Piloseno, it was the canvas of his destiny.
I thought it'd be a super cool idea to start showing the paint mixing process through TikTok, through social media content.
As Tony, a humble paint store employee, began gaining viral fame on TikTok, sharing his passion for colors, he went to his job one day to learn he was being fired.
And that's kind of how Tonester Paints got started.
It was more than just paint. It was art. It was a shared experience. And as the views skyrocketed, so did Tony's aspirations.
I want to inspire others to add unique colors into their home. It's pure emotion. It really feels like the colors and everything that I've tried doing with this comes from a real person. That's always the MO that I've had.
From the aisles of a paint store to the screens of millions, Tony tapped into something profound. Today, we dive into that vibrant journey, exploring the heartbeat of a movement that started with just paint. I'm Dr. Jessica Kriegel, and this is Culture Leaders, where we decode the magic behind the masters of movements to unleash the power of culture. This is the story of Tony Piloseno, master of a movement leveraging TikTok fame to humanize the paint industry.
You're listening to a Culture Partners production.
Tony Tonester, I'm going to ask you the first question that I ask everyone, which is, what is your why? What is your personal purpose? Separate from your business, separate from any hobby, just what is your why?
My why is having a story, or I guess in the process of being in the story of what a lot of people I think go through of wanting to do their own thing every day. Like I always say all the time, every day I'm on vacation because I get to do what I want to do every day. I'm not on a schedule. It's super cool. My why is honestly just being an inspiration to others who are looking to branch off from like their typical corporate jobs, because no one really wants to do that, especially my age. I see a lot of people like college graduates. That's my why, is like being an inspiration for others who want to do their own thing every day.
So you want to bring down corporate America by robbing them of all their talent, by getting them to go do their passion? Is that it?
In a sense, I guess you could say that. I think what the cool thing about today's modern digital age is you don't have to do the corporate role anymore. It's honestly crazy. I know it's like used to be standard, like you used to go to school, get a entry level job, wherever that might be. Like, I don't know. Good example, insurance companies. No one wants to work for those kind of people. Like, I think that everyone is creative and has talent and accessibility to doing their own thing, and they are capable of doing that. So you don't need the corporate jobs anymore. I guess you could say that we are taking the talent away.
Okay, so what's interesting is I've listened to a lot of the interviews that you've done over time, right? Some from 2021, right. Some from this year. And your message has evolved because your business has evolved. And I've heard you talk about humanizing paint, which I absolutely love, because human connection is what's missing in this world, I think, right now, more than ever. But I heard you more recently hedging your bets a little bit about that. You're like, well, the reason my customers come to me is because it was done by me. I created the tint, I mixed it, I packaged it, I sent it, or someone that was trained by me, right? So you are starting to become a little corporate as your business grows. Have you struggled with that dichotomy of growth and humanizing?
In a sense, I don't think so. I think that my product is really the emphasis of like the entire company and the brand. Everyone that buys like a can of Tonester paint knows that I specifically formulated and designed these colors to, evolve people's homes and their spaces, right? I think the big issue with the paint industry these days, or it's been like this forever, like there's really only 3 places you can go to buy paint. And that's like Lowe's, Home Depot, Sherwin-Williams, like hardware store, like not a super fun experience, like some Joe Schmo behind a counter making your paint. There's no like human element to it, right? So I think when people do buy my paint, and, want to support our brand, it's like they're buying it from a real person, not like just a random, can of paint from a hardware store.
Isn't Joe a real person at Home Depot?
Well, Joe Schmo from Home Depot is a real person, but, the colors that he's making, he's just typing a number into a computer that's been made by some chemist, somewhere else that no one's ever heard of. He didn't specifically design, create the formulas for those paints to make it like more personable. You know what I mean?
Okay, so there it is. It's that the people that you work with and the work that you're doing has to have meaning for
Absolutely.
Everyone. They have to be as passionate about this. This has to be their why in order for it to keep working. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
How do you find, because I know you've hired some people part-time at least, I don't know, maybe full-time. How many employees do you have? And how do you ensure that they're just as passionate about this as you are?
I only as of right now have 2 employees on the operational end, like helping me with orders. Cause like this past year, like the sales, everything took off. Like last year was pretty good too, but like I guess just through word of mouth and like the content and the brand evolving, like a lot more people are trusting and now they're ordering more paint. So I had to hire help. So the cool thing about myself is that I've never had any sort of management experience. Like
in the deep end.
I remember in high school, like I worked at like McDonald's and like a grocery store. And then when I got into the paint industry, when I was 18 going through school, same thing, just a part-timer, no management experience. And I think that actually helped in a sense that I didn't have any sort of model or structure to go off of when training and kind of getting people onto the team. What really helps them understand the passion and the importance of like building a brand is that they're in like the early phases of it. They see me working every day, hustling, really trying to help and engage with customers as best as I can. And I think from a leadership perspective, I don't really even have to say much. They kind of just follow my lead, right? That I'm really trying to make this a real humanized product, really trying to help people with their projects as best as I can. And I think that approach really just kind of, resonates with them, and they kind of follow my lead while I'm trying to do that.
Okay, so it's 5 years from now, and Tonester Paints, or Tony, right? You or the business, you're on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. Okay, we're doing an imagination process.
Right.
And it's a great headline, whatever the headline is. What's your ideal headline? What do you hope to have accomplished in the next 5 years, or what impact could you have made? I mean, what's your ideal scenario?
So ideal scenario 5 years from now, what I've come to learn and think that keeps the Tonester Paints brand like cool, unique, like underground in a sense, right, is like keeping it very exclusive. So I guess we already have a brick and mortar shop that I'm in right now here in Orlando. We just got in a few months ago. Super cool, exciting. And, I just think that keeping the brand exclusive, like you can only purchase these paints exclusively through our online store or our physical brick and mortar store. I think that's what keeps the brand fresh, cool, and not commercialized, like I mentioned, to the other hardware stores where you can just go to any of the 2,500 Home Depot locations and get this paint. I think to keep that personal experience, you have to make the product exclusive to specific retailers to where, it adds that flair when you're putting it up onto the wall.
So you're like the modern day mom and pop shop, metaphorically, right? I mean,
right.
There's no mom, I guess. It's just pop shop. But this is what it looks like today. You create a following on Instagram. I mean, I'm amazed that when you were still at Sherwin-Williams, you had 500,000 followers, right? I mean, that thing took off.
On TikTok.
Before you even told your story, which was, I know, led to even more incredible exponential growth, right?
Right.
What's your favorite kind of post to create? Those emotional stories, the artistic ones?
Well, my favorite types of posts that I like to make these days, like back in the day when I was working at Sherwin-Williams and even in the early days of Tonester, like before I really started expanding into like more or different ideas with content, was more of like the entertainment value that you get out of the content. Like oddly satisfying, kind of goofy in a sense, just kind of entertaining, right? Now the content that I've evolved to is just trying to inspire others to add colors into their home. And I think, especially with like how design trends and stuff have been for like the past 5-10 years, where everyone paints the room like, I don't know, gray or beige, like super boring colors. I want to inspire others to add unique colors into their home. So that's really my favorite type of content that I like to make, especially on like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah.
Just any way that I can inspire someone for designing their home.
Well, I'm not even painting anything right now, but I'm inspired by the photography on your website is gorgeous. I mean, I just want to live in all those places. And the names of the paints, I heard you say once that the way you came up with that was just having a couple beers. I mean, name some of your favorite paint names that you've come up with.
So the paint names are actually super, super important to the brand, right? So, there's hundreds of thousands of different color names between like all different color and paint companies, right? And I remember I was talking to an SEO strategist a little while ago, and he said that the only reason that my paint ranks on Google when you go and type it in is specifically because of the unique names. And it gets into like a creative process thing where I've come to learn, especially being creative, like whatever comes off the top of the head, don't ignore it. Don't, think it's not going to sell well because of that name. Just go with it. If that's what you're feeling when you're trying to name these specific colors that I make, that's just what I do these days.
So give me like 2 or 3. Yeah, I want to hear it because the listeners probably don't know.
So Storms in Paris, which has by far been my most popular color by a mile, which I actually made back when I was in Ohio, after I got fired from Sherwin, just randomly making colors.
That's like the blue-gray one?
It's like a blue-green,
okay.
like deep blue-green.
Yeah.
Everyone loves. It's been a staple color of the brand, which has been awesome. But Storms in Paris, I remember I made the name when I was first building the website, and I literally had to come up with names for all these colors that I made. And I remember just sitting there, I don't know, like going back to the few beers thing, just relaxing, chilling. I just thought Storms in Paris. I'm like, that sounds like a cool name. I don't know if I saw it from like something on Pinterest or something relating to Paris, France. It was very, very off the whim. So Storms in Paris is very cool. Let me think of another one. Lost Souls.
Oh yeah, Lost Souls is good. Is this like divine inspiration? Are you spiritual? Do you get this from some higher power, or is it just you being creative?
I think it's just me being creative. I mean, I really do think that it's important to like creativity really comes from like the first thing that you can think of, right? Like what comes to your mind when you see specific colors, or it opens up, it's like a third eye, right? That just like that sense of like, what do you think of when you're looking at these specific colors? And people do that a lot with like music, other pieces of art. It's just whatever your first instinct, your first thought, that's what should relate to the product. Well, that's the approach that I've taken.
It's like poetry. I mean, you are writing poetry in a way. And I heard there's this amazing poet that I love that I can't remember his name. One of the things he said is sometimes it takes him decades to understand what his poetry was about. Because it's some sort of magic that happens in the creative process. And one of the things that I believe strongly is that your brand is an external manifestation of your culture, of the way that you operate, the way you think and act. And your culture is an internal manifestation of your brand. So I wonder how, as your team does grow, as you continue to do your work, how does that brand inform the way you work with people, the business decisions you make? I mean, you just opened a brick or mortar shop. How did your brand influence the way that those business decisions play out?
I would just say like the biggest thing that, like you had mentioned, is like the brand is a extension of myself, my thoughts, it's pure emotion. It really feels like the colors and everything that I've tried doing with this comes from a real person. That's always the MO that I've had. Every step of the way is like, Tonester Paints is a person. Everything is designed, taken steps by Tony Piloseno. But really tying that emotion to it, I think. And there's a lot of emotion in color too, which actually plays out really well. Because colors make people feel a certain way, especially when they're in rooms. What purpose is it serving? Are you trying to relax or feel more energetic? But yeah, I would say it really is just a big extension of myself. And, I always want the story to align with whatever business decisions I'm making, right? So never going too corporate, never commercializing anything, keeping it like you're buying paint from a friend kind of idea.
You're still also very respectful of corporate America, though. I mean, you talk about
Absolutely.
Sherwin-Williams as having, sometimes bad business decisions get made by one or two people without big corporate knowing about it, and they meant well. I mean, you're not anti-corporate. I was kind of making a joke at the beginning, right? But you're disrupting an industry in a way.
Right. I've never had any hard feelings towards any sort of large corporation. Have you ever heard the saying that corporations are just made up of people, like real people with real thoughts, ideas? So it's not like some large machine that I can physically see and try to take down, like in a literal sense. It's just a group of people. And like you said, the whole thing with Sherwin-Williams, any other paint companies that I've dealt with, there's no hard feelings. There never has been. If anything, I always try to look at it from a positive perspective, like how much I learned from these specific companies. Like if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have learned, found a passion, really be where I'm at today without them. So you can't really fault them for anything out of their control.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning when I asked you what your why was, and you talked about inspiring people to follow their passion, to be entrepreneurial. How are you doing that beyond telling your story online and doing it by being a role model? I mean, do you get to mentor people that are young in college, coming out, do people reach out to you and ask you for advice? I mean, you're a young entrepreneur, which I think a lot of young people look up to other folks who show them that they can do it. What's your experience on the ground, so to speak?
So the two people really that I can say on the ground, like I try every day to inspire to do something like me, are my two employees. They ask me questions all the time, like what my thought process is, like how did I, get to where Tonester Paints is at today? Because my goal really isn't especially for them being part-time and operational, I don't want them to work for me forever. I want them, because they themselves have business aspirations, goals, ideas, and passions. And I really just hope that what they see every day that I'm doing and what I can teach them and show them, especially just through good business practice, right? Having a good product, good service, and having a true message to try to benefit others through your company. I try teaching them that every day, like just through small little lessons or, things that they see me doing. That's really the two people on the ground that I'm showing, hey, you can do this too. You just want to take these specific steps.
So it starts with the team.
And they get to see it every day. So like I said, I don't want them to be employees forever. They're young, just like me, the same exact age. They're both creators as well. They love doing social media content. I just try giving them my best input. And the thing that I always say was, I tell them is, no one wants to work for another person. I don't care what your job is. Everyone wants to do their own thing, have their own schedule, have their own vision. But I always tell them it's really just about the hours and the work that you put in. I remember working at Sherwin, Florida Paints, and Sherwin and Florida Paints, and you have to have income, right? Especially today. I was working 8 hours a day at my paint job shift, and then 8 hours after that, creating content, building the brand, sending out paint orders, whatever it might have been. It's really the hours that you put in after work that really count towards your goals.
Yeah, so you remind me of me because I'm the least entrepreneurial entrepreneur out there. I built my business over the course of 8 years while I was working in corporate America, doing a corporate job, getting the paycheck, because I was terrified of taking that big leap of faith that a lot of these entrepreneurs are all in on, right? They're just like going to eat ramen for 3 years and put every penny into the business, and their passion is going to get them there. I was like, no, thank you. I need the health benefits. I need the guaranteed salary, and I'll use whatever time that I have outside of work to build the business, even if it takes me twice as long. I feel like that's you too, because you went to Florida Paints, right? I mean, they were kind of encouraging you to do this. You had this manufacturing contract with them that they were encouraging you to build Tonester, which eventually didn't totally work out because of a lack of, was that a culture misalignment issue? What happened there?
So at Florida Paints, it kind of was a culture disalignment. When I got down here, they really did give me like all the resources. I got to learn about their product because they do manufacture all my base paint, their highest grade interior wall base, for me to actually make the paint colors and formulate different colors. I got down there and it kind of was a culture thing, right? Like they are very focused on going back to commercialized paint. They're very focused on commercial products. I remember working there and I was just making 5-gallon buckets of gray and beige, which I did not like. I didn't get to work on any projects like with homeowners in the retail setting, which I was always good at Sherwin-Williams. They're a family-owned business, a Christian-oriented company, and it would get into things like where they weren't happy if I was using certain music in my videos.
Oh.
But yeah, it was kind of just like, it was kind of limiting my creative process is the best way to describe it. But going back, I did learn a lot about their product. I did get situated here in Florida. And then, once things started really taking off for Tonester, they still helped me, with that manufacturing contract and still allowed me to grow my business and service me the way that I needed to build Tonester Paints.
Yeah. You talked about connecting with the owner of Florida Paint at an emotional level. I mean, you were getting approached by Bear and all these huge companies, and you went with this little Florida-based company. It was because of that personal, emotional connection? Is that it was the person that attracted you to that partnership?
I think during that process, going back to it, like I just had a very, not traumatic, but very displeasing experience with the biggest paint manufacturer in the world. So it wouldn't have made sense for me to go back and try it again with, similar companies like that. Florida Paints, there's a very short list at the top. If I needed to talk to whether it be the president or the owners, like at any given point, I could always talk to them, give them my ideas. And it was more of a easier way to explore different ideas. Going back to like the personal level with the owner, that was a big part of it too. There was no owners of any of those big companies who reached out to me.
It was the marketing departments, right?
It was the marketing department.
Yeah. So we use a model called the results pyramid about shaping culture. And it is all based in experiences that lead to beliefs that drive our actions and ultimately get us results. You had an experience with Sherwin-Williams that led to a belief that corporate America is dysfunctional and cannot be trusted.
Absolutely.
That led you to take an action, which was to opt out, even though they were probably throwing money at you at the time, right? And then you got this new result, which is a pretty risky approach to be entrepreneurial in this way. But, here you are today. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty gritty of it. This is a hard question.
Sure.
What is the hardest part about your job today? I mean, what's the thing that isn't advertising worthy, the part that you hate?
The part that is the most difficult every day is I'm still in the growing stage of the business where I have to be hands on deck every day, 7 days a week. It's been like that since I started 2-3 years ago when I started the business. I still want to make sure with a newer brand, with a newer brand, there's a lot of people who are giving you a try for the first time, right? Which is very, very important. Whether that be responding to customer emails, customer inbox questions, dealing with logistical issues. It's just a lot. My daily task list is very, very long. But every day, I have to keep reminding myself that it's a newer brand. I'm the only one, especially since we haven't taken out any loans, debt, any VC, we're still bootstrapping it, that I have to be the one that is defining the brand for these new customers. And it just kind of gets overwhelming at some points. But like I said at the beginning of the interview, every day I'm on vacation. So I don't mind it all that much when I look back on each day and know that I took my business a step further.
Yeah, when it's purpose-inspired work, it doesn't feel like work anymore. No one wants to do work that feels like work. They want to do work that feels like play. That's the whole thing.
Exactly. And it's not, it doesn't even really feel like work. It feels like building a business. Like I know that they're definitely two different things. It was what I've come to learn.
Yeah.
There's no like set tasks that I have to do every day. There's 1,000 different tasks that I have to do every day. But I know on a scale that it's literally taking my business forward each day.
What's the most gratifying moment you've had in your growth journey?
The most gratifying moments that I have are when I get customer pictures of them using my paint in their spaces. It's really a cool feeling to see that. It's almost like going back to it. It's like an extension of myself in someone's home, in someone's space. And I always compare it to like buying a piece of art from an artist, right? It's has that same sort of feeling, I think, that I created something and it's now people trusted it and now it's a part of their home, a part of their design, their living situation. And the cool thing about it, and the thing about paint is you look at it every day when you wake up or when you're in your home. So it's just a prominence of the story, the brand in someone's home. I think that's the coolest part about what I get to do.
So what color paint is on your walls at home?
I have Storms in Paris. I'm actually a renter, just like most people my age. But my landlord did let me paint. I painted Storms in Paris in my living room, and I have olive black in my bathroom.
Oh, man. I used to have a bedroom that was a deep brown, like as dark brown as you can get. So at night, it almost feels like it's black. And it was just the most cozy room ever. You know, you go in there, you just feel like you're in a little hole. It put me right to sleep.
I know. That's the cool part about paint, too, what I've come to learn over through my career. It's just like that emotional and like there's that impact that a paint color has in your home. It's really cool. That's why I don't really like making like light grays and beiges. Like I want like that. I want you to see and feel that color that Tonester Paints made wherever you put it in a home. It's the coolest part.
Okay, so if you could influence 500 million people right now with a thought or a mantra, or if you could get people to do something differently to make the world a better place, and it can have nothing to do with paint if you want it to, or it could be all about paint. It's really up to you. How would you change the world?
With 500 million people watching, that is a tough question. I would just say my biggest thing is like you only really get one life and, you know, very few opportunities to do what you really want to do. Like everyone really has, whether they say it or not, they really have something that they want to do. And they want to make it a lifestyle too, which is the big thing. I would say never think you're in a situation where you're not able to do it. Like you have other things going on. I think if you really want to do something, that if you put in the time, effort, and consistency, it can become a reality. It almost goes back into like manifestation. Like if you can envision a goal or a lifestyle that you want to have, it is absolutely possible to achieve. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. So something I talk to CEOs of big corporations all the time, and the narrative right now out there is that no one wants to work anymore. And not only do they not want to work anymore, but they're entitled. I mean, I literally wrote a book about how millennials are stereotyped, and the stereotype is millennial. You're not even a millennial. You're a Gen Zer, right? I mean, you don't want to work. You're lazy. You think that it should be handed to you on a silver platter, and no one wants to work anymore. I tell the story of my next door neighbors. They just bought a house for $350,000 and they had a wedding, which was fabulous. I saw the pictures. Her job is making lingerie and selling it on Etsy. And his job is buying and refurbishing chess sets on eBay. And somehow that income is enough to allow them to buy this house. You know, I mean, that's what young people today have available to them that because the internet didn't exist back in the day, our older generations perhaps didn't, right? I mean, you are a modern day example of, as this opportunity has arisen, you've shaped a new industry, you're disrupting the industry and shaping a new way of life and inspiring people to do that. Have you heard of any young people who have followed in your footsteps because they were inspired by you?
There actually was in Cleveland. One of my friends had told me he was wearing one of my t-shirts at the mall in Cleveland, Ohio. And they said he went up to my friend and told them that he started selling plants online from the Tonester Paints story, that, you know, whatever you want to do, you're able to do it, especially with like the digital, if you create a digital presence. And that's what I've heard. And actually, my cousin too, he does the eBay thing now too.
Cool.
It's just cool with the online marketplace. Like you said, your neighbors, there's almost no ceiling to how much money you can make.
Yeah.
When you work a 9-to-5 job at, you know, whatever company, there's a cap. You can't make more than they're going to allow you to make. With selling things online, especially, e-commerce has boomed over the past 5-10 years. There's literally no ceiling. You can make, tomorrow I could get $1 million in paint sales, and that's just how it just happened. There's no ceiling to it.
Well, hopefully you will after people listen to this podcast. I will only buy my paint from you from now on because you inspire me.
You almost have to.
I almost have to. Okay, here's another question I want to ask you, and we'll kind of wrap with this. You've done a lot of interviews. You've gotten a lot of questions online. What is one question that no one has ever asked you that you wish they would so you could answer it?
I guess it goes back into like the work. Everyone kind of sees on social media like all like it's almost like no one gets to see the behind the scenes of what I do every day. Like literally every day. I'm here at the paint store at 6 a.m. I have been for the past 3 years. Wherever I've been working, I get there at 6 a.m. and I usually stay till like 7 or 8. No one really asks me the amount of hours and time that I've actually put into building Tonester Paints. Everyone kind of sees it on social media as like a showcase, right? Like no one's asked me about like how many hours I had to put into building Tonester Paints. No one's asked me, about my logistical problems, like working with different suppliers. I've had issues with multiple suppliers for samples, like all like the weird logistical stuff that goes into business. No one ever really asked me about that. But that's a huge part of operating and running an online business is, making sure everything's on time, that I'm able to get my customers the product that they ordered. Just a lot of logistical stuff. No one really gets to ask me about.
Well, that's the boring stuff, right?
I know. Well, that's the stuff I do. That's the stuff I do 90% of the time.
Yeah, no one wants to hear about that. They want to know more about the TikToks.
Exactly.
Okay, so what should we be looking forward to in your upcoming collaborations? Do you have more sponsorships coming? I mean, what's next for Tonester Paints?
So on the sponsorship end, I don't want to say this, but I'm very limited on the sponsorships that I do these days. So the cool part about Tonester Paints as a content page, right, is it's almost the mix between an influencer and a business, a brand page. So whenever I get to post, I don't have to look for brand deals or sponsorships to get revenue. When I post and showcase my own products, I get the sales and, the feedback for my own brand instead of someone else's. So really what I look for these days is like high-end collaborations. I really want to work with high-end designers in very, unique spaces, something that's like out of the box, right? So working with high-end designers, working with higher-end brands. The cool part about color is, especially paint colors, is that it relates to every single other brand and every single company. So it's easy to work with when, let's say I wanted to work with, Kith, for example. I could design and formulate specific colors and work with them easier than any other influencer or brand could. So that's my whole thing, is working with higher end brands and designers and collaborating on future projects, products, and designs.
Okay, so if you could go back and tell younger you, 5 years ago the you that was before you got the call from the paint police at Sherwin-Williams,
the paint police.
Right?
Did you hear that in a previous interview?
Yeah. The paint, for the listeners, paint police is his term for loss prevention specialist. When he started his TikToks at Sherwin-Williams came after him by accusing him of stealing the paint, which he was not. But before that happened, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, ghost of future Tony shows up and says, "Hey, Tony, do this." What would that piece of advice be?
I think, and it's really not that long ago, which is crazy. It's really
I know,
only
you're
like
25 years old. My goodness.
So like, if I could go back and tell my 21-year-old self who was just starting this out, I would say be able to trust yourself and your own creative vision and your own processes. I think as younger people who want to start their own businesses, a lot of anxiety and questions come into play because they don't really know if they're able to do this, or they don't really know if it's going to work. But what I've come to learn is that if you really just trust your own vision and trust your own creativity, it's unique in itself already. There's no single written plan for everyone to start a business, right? There's no outline, there's no playbook. It's going to be different for everyone. So I would say just trust every step of the way, trust your creative process, and that'll get you farther ahead than you would ever really even know.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for chatting with me.
Oh,
I think
you.
it's so cool that your purpose is inspiring young people to go follow their passion and do something that they love. There's probably a lot of people out there talking about that, but very few of them are actually doing it and being the role model of it. So to see you doing that in action at such a young age, that's the most gratifying thing about my job too. I'm a keynote speaker most of the time, right? And last week I was in Las Vegas doing a keynote, and someone sent me an email afterwards that said, after watching your keynote, I just realized that's what I want to do. And that was way more motivating to me than all of the, emails I got saying, oh, that content was really wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Can I get a copy of your slide deck?
That really is that is beautiful. Like, I really think coming down to like a real human level and inspiring others, I mean, that's what drives everyone to do, or people like us, what we want to do every day. I mean, that's really the coolest part about it. That's really cool.
Yeah, the human level of mastering your
human
movement.
level.
That's right. Humanizing
Absolutely.
paint. So now, since we have you here and your expertise is valuable to those that are listening, we want to take some caller questions, if that's okay with you. We have 3 callers
Absolutely.
that want to chat with you. They want to pick your brain, a couple entrepreneurs, and then also one of your fans that reached out. So are you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
Okay, let's do this.
Hi, my name is Summer Wilson. I am calling in from the Tampa Bay area. Specifically, St. Pete is where I live. But I am an interior designer in the area, interior stylist. I do a lot of work from short-term rentals to restaurants, you name it. I'm down to do it. But yeah, I actually found Tony's paint on Instagram. So I'm super excited to ask my question today.
Okay, wonderful. What's the question?
So my question is for Tony. Obviously, I'm a big fan of your paint. I also left my corporate job to start and follow my own passion in interior design and interior styling. And I myself have a creative process when I'm putting together a space for whatever type of space I'm putting together. So I have different creative processes for those different avenues. So my question is, how do you come up with your paint colors? What is your creative process in that? Do you seek inspiration in nature? Where are you seeking your inspiration from to come up with such rich, beautiful colors?
Awesome. Tony?
So my creative process for coming up with new colors, I've only, believe it or not, over the past 3 years of starting Tonester Paints, I've only made 38 colors. And that does not sound like a lot, but I do that on purpose because I do look for outside, real, true inspiration. Like I mentioned before, that comes like supernatural. So really where I start out is honestly, a lot of my colors came from using social media and seeing other interior design projects. The cool part about, getting all technical and understanding color theory and color formulation over my, 7 years in the paint business is that if I see a color through a project, I'm able to replicate it through my own formula, through my own paint. So if I, on an emotional level, if I walk into a space or if I see it on Pinterest, Instagram, whatever I see it digitally, I'm able to recreate that color into my own variation with my own style and then be able to offer it as a color on the Tonester Paints website.
Yeah, what's interesting is one of my father's best friends was a nose. They called him the nose. He was one of 6 people in the world who their job is to come up with different perfumes. And he has this incredibly specialized skill of smelling the notes in different. And I remember hearing you talk about the way you come up with these colors. I mean, you were doing it with literal blueberries to make the blue. And I mean, there is that. Did that evolve? Do you then go into, the 4.59 mixed with a little bit of 777? Or do you still, I know you haven't created one more recently, but do you get to use those organic materials still?
Yeah, absolutely. Like with the blueberries and stuff.
Yeah.
No, not really. That was more like back in my, early days of creating content, going back to like the entertainment value kind of thing. Like obviously the blueberry paint, you know, using like organic materials like blueberries and other things, natural materials to make different colors. I just thought that'd be a super cool way to demonstrate like blueberries tinting paint, right?
Yeah, yeah. That was artistic. That was the
It
poetry
was.
of it. It wasn't really the logistics of it.
Exactly. Like believe it or not, like before a couple hundred years ago when paint wasn't commercialized and, people did use organic pigments and materials to make paint. Like I remember it was like a lot of people use a lot of roots, berries, like any sort of organic pigments to actually make paint colors, whether it was for artist paint, or actually painting a home.
That's very
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so we have another caller. This is an entrepreneur. His name is Brian, and let's go to him.
Hey, this is Brian Akar, host of Why I Left, a podcast that chronicles real stories from real people about why they left their jobs during the pandemic and shares insights from the lessons they learned.
Wonderful. I like how Brian Akar is in a car. Okay, Brian, what is your question?
So my question is for Tony. Tony, when I hear about your story, it really embodies the power of igniting a movement and transforming your own personal situation. And when you think about it, you go from being fired at Sherwin-Williams to creating a thriving paint brand through TikTok is really a testament to the cultural shifts that are happening in our digital age. So given, my show's focus on the future of work and culture and all those things, here's what I'd like to know. How do you see the evolving culture influenced by platforms like TikTok impacting the workplace of the future? And also, what advice can you offer for individuals and even businesses looking to harness the dynamics of this new cultural landscape for success? Thank you.
I love that question. What do you think,
That
Tony?
was a good question.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest part and the biggest impact that social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they have on businesses these days is that it's almost like a new microscope into different companies, right? So it allows it allows a company to have a human element for their potential customers or customers that they already have, to see their processes, their ideas, what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And I think if a company can actually use that correctly, not with like the standard advertisement, like, oh, here's my product, this is why you should buy it, and here's the price, right? I think if you go into the actual processes, the people that are involved with the company and it's the business itself, I think if you can properly highlight that through TikTok and social media content, I think you're golden. I think that's the coolest thing about it, for that companies have the advantage to use.
Well, that's a great point. I love the word that you used, a microscope, because it also goes both ways, right? When your
Right.
culture is bad and your employees
Exactly.
go online and let everybody know. I mean, there was that trend called quit talking a while back where people
Right.
were live quitting their jobs on TikTok. That exposes unhealthy corporate culture in a way that
It does.
it used to be very hush hush. We don't talk about Bruno, right? But now
Right.
everyone's talking about Bruno online. And so you can't hide a bad culture from the world. I mean, especially with things like Glassdoor and LinkedIn and all of that as well. So what
Absolutely.
you're talking about, personal branding as a tool to amplify the culture that you have internally. I mean, we do that at Culture Partners, right? My personal brand is now intertwined inexorably from Culture Partners. And
Right.
that was a strategic decision. It was not something that happened organically. Our CEO, Joe Terry, bought my business that I had built for years while I was in corporate America, right? And so I went from corporate America right back into corporate America by selling my side hustle, essentially. And now what I do on TikTok and on Instagram, it represents Culture Partners. And I think people connect with that more than this nameless, faceless brand that's, got a blue logo and basically is represented by the idea of an entity rather than a person with a face and a name. I think people buy your paints because they like you.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
People, especially when it comes to purchasing decisions from consumers these days, They want to have some sort of actual connection to the business or the person that they're buying the product from. They don't want to just like, going back to like what I said earlier, paint is super commercialized. You only go to hardware stores to really get it. And it makes people feel better when they're spending their money with this company that they can have an actual connection and they feel like that they're a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
I feel that when
absolutely.
I buy things. And also, you're going to probably attract talent easier because of that. I mean, you're going to attract
Absolutely.
talent on your TikTok. You're going to say hiring and someone's going to ping you back a DM and say, sounds good, I'm interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have one more question. So let's go to Jason.
Hey there, my name is Jason Isaacs. I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California, and I'm a founder of an eco-friendly streetwear brand called Blurry Recreation. So my question is around communicating your why to your audience. I think as founders and entrepreneurs, you know why you started your business, and a lot of the times it's a very personal development to kick off your business. But I found in marketing, sometimes it's very hard to distill all the things that contributed to you starting your business down to something that someone else can understand. So I'm just wondering if you have any effective tips or methods for how do you communicate your why to your customers or consumers?
That was a good question.
It was. Maybe can you expand a little bit more on the question, maybe about the challenge, or just give us more context, Jason?
Yeah, I think on social media or as you're developing a website, you're forced for essentially creating customer touch points and trying to distill down the essence of your brand or your company down into like very understandable and relatable touch points that people can interact with and quickly understand what you're all about. And I think, starting your business and having a history of many different things that contributed to you getting to that point, it's hard to distill all of those moments and sometimes years and decades down into a couple bullet points. So I'm just wondering if you know any effective ways that you've gone about, distilling down the mission of your business or the mission of your company into bullet points that consumers can easily understand.
Yeah, Tony, does Tonester Paints have a mission statement?
It does not.
You want to create one right now?
We can. This is probably a good time to do it.
Because it sounds like your why has evolved, frankly. I mean, you kind of fell into it. Now it's about inspiring young people. I mean, it's adapting, right?
Right. Yeah. The model of everything has changed. I feel like it changes every single day, right? But I think the biggest emphasis that we talked about earlier that I want to have for people, especially through content, through brand messaging, is that you're able to transform your space from a product from a real human being. I have branded throughout my social media content, handcrafted paint designed by Tony Piloseno specifically. It's not paint designed by computer somewhere in Ohio or wherever other paint companies make their paint colors and formulate it. It's coming from a real person trying to inform, inspire, and with a little bit of entertainment with like the, style of content that I make. That's really the brand messaging. It's made by a real human that's giving you ideas and is inspiring you.
In order to transform your space into something that is invoking some emotion, right? It could be even not an emotion. It could be some kind of poetry. It could be Storms in Paris. I know what feeling I get from Storms in Paris, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I was born in Paris, so maybe I have a little bit more emotionally caught up.
Really?
Yeah, I was. But okay.
I actually have never been.
Oh my goodness, dude. I mean, we gotta crowdsource you funds to get you to Paris if your whole business is built around mainly Storms in Paris.
I know, but I am going in January. That was actually just confirmed today. I'm going to be keynote speaking at a design conference in Paris.
Oh my goodness.
Very cool.
Well,
very exciting.
Hey, if you need some keynote speaking advice, I've been doing this for 10 years. I would be more than happy to help you with that offline. But let's do free consulting right now. Let's come up with a purpose statement. Okay,
Mission statement should be very short, right?
Right. So 6 words or less, and the free words are our purpose is to. So don't count those in your word count, but you're going to finish that sentence and you're going to want to start with the action verb. So it could be humanize, it could be transform, it could be, one of these buzzwords that you've used recently that's at the heart of why you do it. And then some best practices to include is this is something that those 2 people that work for you, You want them to wake up in the morning and feel inspired by this, that they can see the impact they're making on the world. It's got to have nothing to do with money, nothing to do with growth, nothing to do with competition. Right. It's just how your unique impact is different than all the other unique impacts that all these other businesses are doing. So what's that action word that feels the most profound and at the center or core of what you do?
I think, like you said, that's the main word that I love to use is humanize.
Yeah, I've heard you say that so much.
I think that is the big emphasis that I have on the brand itself, is humanizing a very commercialized product.
Yeah.
So humanize, and then you said now.
So now you're humanizing, and then you humanize paint is kind of, I don't know, does that inspire your people? Does it inspire you? Is it about the paint, or is it about the experience that the people are having that are your consumers with regards to transforming their space? Or is it
exactly?
That's
right.
what it feels like to me, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like
absolutely
guiding you right now into a corner, but it feels like I'm on the right track.
No, that is what I do. I mean, you're humanizing a space, right? Like, I love the how I always say, it's like buying a piece of art from an artist, right?
Yeah.
So a real person made this, and you add it, and you get to experience it every single day through your space, through your home, wherever you might be, that you're adding that specific color, right? So I think that's definitely on the right track.
So it could be humanizing the transformation of your space, right?
That is wonderful. I love that.
Oh, you're just going to take the first suggestion, Tony? Come on.
Well, that's exactly what it is, right?
Okay. I mean, I did suggest it because I thought it was perfect. Okay, so here's my advice to you. Go talk to your two people and say,
right,
I'm writing this mission statement. I think it should be to humanize the transformation of your space. Ask them if it inspires them. Ask them if they would tweak it. Do a little mini workshop. You've got this golden because it's only 3 people. You guys could bang this out in 15 minutes, And then let me ask you this follow-up question. So if that's your purpose statement, right, to humanize the transformation of your space, I think the word "your" is really important because it's about
absolutely
your relationship with the consumer that's following you on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Go 20 years out. What could the business evolve into to where that purpose statement is still true, right? You're doing so much more than just selling paint 20 years from now in this hypothetical situation, but you're still humanizing the transformation of your space. I mean, does that still inspire you of all the other things you could be doing? Does that feel at the heart of what you are passionate about?
Absolutely. I think that it absolutely does. The model that I like to even kind of replicate, and I kind of want to replicate down the road, is let's, for example, a fashion designer, right? A name brand fashion designer, high end, that their team and their people design these specific products, and that's why you really like it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not, something you can buy anywhere.
Right.
And it's designed by experts and people who really care about the product and the brand and want to make the best design possible. That's exactly how that specific statement could lead down the road 20 years from now. Totally.
And I mean, if you partner with interior designers, if you partner with artists, all these collaborations, they would still be humanizing the transformation of your space.
Absolutely.
Beyond just the wall color, essentially.
Right.
Okay, so let's do one more step on our whole culture equation just for fun. So the next step, once you understand your why, your purpose is your why, you want to create the 5-year vision of your results that you can achieve. It's vision, technically, that you can create, but it's also a vision that has a metric associated with it so that 5 years from now, you can see if you actually did it, rather than this aspirational vision that's just a bunch of buzzwords and people are like, wait, is that the vision or the mission, right? So the way we do it at Culture Partners is we want to impact 5 million lives in 2025. We started a few years ago, right? So it's only a couple years away now. But if we have impacted, our purpose is to unleash the power of culture. And our vision, R2, we call it, is to impact 5 million lives in 2025. If you can figure out the math, I'm not going to make you do it right here, on how many homes you would need to be in,
Right.
how many cans of paint you'd have to sell in order to impact how many spaces, right? Or how many collaborations, you could create a vision statement that you're going to impact blank spaces in transforming those spaces by a certain year. Now you've got something you can share with your operations team and say, this is what we're working for. This is where we're headed.
Wonderful. That is absolutely. And, I haven't really thought of that before, especially this early on. Like I think right now we're probably in about 10,000 homes in the United States. But if there's a number 5 years from now, I think in 5 years from now, if we were in 500,000 homes,
Boom.
that would be a great number.
There you go.
Number to hit.
500,000 homes in 2028.
Yeah.
Yeah. 500,000 spaces, because you want to tie the purpose to the vision, right? So your purpose is to humanize the transformation of your space. And your vision would be to transform 500,000 spaces by 2028.
Yes.
Boom.
Absolutely.
Now we're cooking with gas, Tony.
You're going to see this. There's going to be a new mission statement page on my website probably this weekend. And, I'll credit that to you.
Okay, well, I'm so excited. I just want to see you succeed. I'm going to transform. I think I need to paint my house now just because of this conversation. I mean, I just moved in January and painted it, but it's time for a transformation of my space.
And like I said before, it's you almost really don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Especially after this conversation.
Yeah.
And every time you or someone else hears this podcast, it's going to make them think twice about where they're getting their paint from.
That's right. Buy your paints with Tonester Paints. I mean, I feel like I'm doing a commercial, but if you want your space to be transformed by a human that is so lovely that we just got to spend this last 45 minutes with, then do the right thing. Sherwin-Williams doesn't care about you. I'm just kidding. No, we love Sherwin-Williams. You never bad talk them. I appreciate that about you.
I know. And my parents were the ones that always told me they guided me and told me that's not the right way to go about that situation.
That is really honorable, because you could go dirty with that really easy. And I bet some people online would love that. They would just eat that up, right? Because it's drama. And you didn't take the drama approach, which is so lovely. That's part of your cultural beliefs.
Exactly. That's not why that does not go back to my why of why I get up every day and do what I like to do.
No, that's your way. Right? Your purpose is your why, your strategy is the how, and your culture is the way to get results. Well, we have loved learning about your culture, and we've loved developing your purpose. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and answering the questions. You're just such an inspiration. Like I said before we started recording, I'm such a fangirl because it's very cool to see someone making an impact in the world, following their passion and taking a risk. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me on. This is a great discussion. I loved the fact that we got to actually talk to people who had real questions. We went over a lot of stuff that we don't normally get to cover. I don't normally get to cover on interviews. So I had a really great time. Thank you again. That's awesome. And we're going to put this in the show notes, but is there anywhere where people can they go to follow you or learn new things about you so you can get more familiar with the audience that we've got? So all of my social media handles at Tonester Paints, and my company website is tonesterpaints.com. Thank you for tuning in to Culture Leaders. I'm Dr. Jessica Kriegel, hoping you found inspiration in today's story. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and share your thoughts. And thanks for listening.
Please be sure to connect with Jessica and the show at jessicakriegel.com. There, you'll be able to see all the episodes and learn more about transforming culture at your organization. This episode is a Culture Partners production. Until next time, keep shaping a positive culture. Thanks for listening.